Hello and welcome to the Coworker Connection orientation. My name is Kara Ayers. I'm the Advocacy Coordinator from UC and I've recorded this orientation as a way for people that couldn't attend our in-person orientation in December of 2015 to catch up on the information, or for other people that might prefer to review the information this way or look at it for the first time in this format. So by the end of this training, we hope that you will be able to understand some disability basics, or a refresher course if you are already familiar. And we also hope that you'll be able to have a conversation about communication with your connection. If you haven't already, we hope that you'll have the skills necessary to plan your first social outing together, and that you'll make the most of your connection. So what is this program and what is it not? Coworker Connection is a collaborative effort across several different groups and departments in the hospital. So UC is one of those groups. We are the University of Cincinnati University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. Another group is Disability Support Services here at the hospital, as well as ERGs, or Employee Resource Groups, including the Young Professionals, the YPs, and the Office of Diversity is another among several groups that have come together to work to create this program and get it off the ground, and hopefully see it do what we aim for it to do, which is to expand your social circles and give people the opportunity to meet other coworkers with and without disabilities. So this program is completely voluntary, it's informal, and the structure is up to you. So what that means is that you can choose to stop anytime, you can choose to have as many meetups as you want. There's no rules to these types of things. It's also important to note that both parties are equal partners in the relationship. So we hope that you'll take this opportunity to connect with someone that you might not have had the opportunity to meet or get to know otherwise, and that both individuals are equal in the partnership. As organizing partners, or the individuals that have planned this program and continue to support it, we've made the matches, so you've been connected. We'll continue to provide support to help you make the most of these partnerships, whether that be through emails, or if you want to ask one of us, if you see one of us regularly for support or services, either of those is fine. If you need ideas for where to look, if you'd like to plan an event together but you're not sure, maybe where do you get a schedule for a Cyclones game, or if maybe you're just not sure what to do and you really need some help, we can point you in some good directions for calendars of local Cincinnati events that you might want to check out. We also we hope to offer training opportunities in the future to meet the needs that you've specified when we surveyed participants as they signed up for this program. So some people said they wanted to learn more about individuals with disabilities. Others said they wanted to learn more about everything from finance to different maybe cultural experiences in this city. So we'll try our best to make at least some of those a reality through training. This program will not determine your schedule, so we won't set anything as mandatory, or we actually won't schedule your social outings. That'll be your responsibility between your partnership. And it also is not the formal mentorship program. So if you're interested in that, we can definitely point you in the right direction of where that is, that the hospital maintains through the Office of Diversity, but that this is a different program from that. A brief note on language in terms of when you're talking about disability, as you're having dialogue between your connectors and other employees who do or don't have a disability, sometimes people get stuck on what are the right words to use. And so one safe way to answer that question is to use people first language, and it just puts the person first. So instead of saying disabled person or more outdated terminology such as handicapped, instead you would say person with a disability or people with disabilities. So it's always just about putting the person first and then the disability. And that just recognizes that the person is not only their disability, that there's many different parts to them. What can be a little bit challenging is there's also a type of way of speech called identity first language, which some people say, they might say that my disability is important to me. It's so important to me that I choose to identify with that part of my identity. So some members of the autistic community and the deaf and blind community say, no, I would like to be called, I identify myself as an autistic person or a deaf person. So rather than get confused about what words to use, what we hope you'll take from this is it's always best to ask a person. It's a great way to get to know each other. You might feel comfortable talking about disability between your partnership right away, or you might want to wait till later. You might not actually want to do it at all. We haven't matched you based on sharing that in common. We've matched you based on that you share other things in common. But if you do have that conversation, we hope that you'll talk about how you prefer to be called or what words you use to describe disability. We also want to point out that not all disabilities are visible. So some are visible, people who use wheelchairs, little people, people who may have significant developmental disabilities, but other disabilities are invisible, and those might include learning disabilities, autism, hearing impairments, blindness, speech impairments. So not all disabilities are seen. A few disability do's and don'ts. In general, don't ask what's wrong. That's not a good way to get a conversation started. Don't invade personal space. We all kind of want our bubbles, and so keep that in mind that medical equipment, wheelchairs, walkers, crutches are generally extensions of a person. So in the same way that you wouldn't lean on a coworker's shoulder generally, you also wouldn't want to lean on their wheelchair or lean on their crutches or walker. It's always okay to offer to help anyone, especially other coworkers, but there's no need to really rush to open doors or hold elevators. You can offer to help, but if an individual says, no thanks, I got it myself, accept that answer as well. And always make sure that you're talking to the person. So if an individual with a disability is out with another person, let's say at a restaurant, and the waiter was asking to take up the person's order, it's always more appropriate that they ask that person directly rather than asking the person that they're with, what would he or she like to eat? So if you see that type of thing happening too, you can always guide it back to the conversation and say, well, I don't know, Mary, what would you like to eat? And make sure that that person has the opportunity to speak for themselves is really important. We do want you to get to know a person and to build a relationship before asking personal questions. Some people may feel very comfortable talking about disability. Other people may want to wait until they build a relationship. And for other people, it may take quite a while. It might be a very private matter for them that for social connections or friendships, it's just not something that they want to talk about. We do hope that you'll relax in this partnership, that you'll be open, and that, as we mentioned before, if you offer to help and the person says no, then taking that answer as well too. In our in-person orientation, we showed just 3 really brief videos that related to awkwardness, just the idea that we all get awkward sometimes and that it's okay to be awkward, just to push through that we're all learning from each other about what to do in different situations that are something that we haven't experienced before. So I'm going to include the links to these videos if you would like to watch them. I think they're enjoyable. They're funny ways to look at how we as humans sometimes can feel pretty awkward and not sure what to do, but they're not necessarily mandatory. So I'll include these at the end of our training. If you'd like to watch them, you can click on those and watch the videos as well. This is what they look like to begin with. All right, getting started. So communicating with your connection, a few tips. So all of your relationships, your connections through this program, we hope will have early, open, and honest conversations about communication preferences. So we hope you'll talk about what's your preferred method of communication. Is that text, email, a phone call? Is all 3 okay with you? No real difference? So ask those questions to yourself and to your partner as well. Also talk about when are you available. There's so much diversity across the individuals that has signed up for Coworkers Connections that it's important to know some of us may be able to plan something via email quickly at work. Others can't do that at all. So ask those questions so that you know when a person can plan something. Especially if you're texting or calling, when is too early and when is too late for you personally. We all have different kind of rules around that. About how often do you check your email? To let your partner know that so that they can know, is that a reliable way to get in touch with you quickly? And how much notice do you prefer to plan a social outing? And it might not be just your preferences, but if you need to set up transportation or childcare, you may need a longer time to set up social outings. So talk about that with your partner as well. Also, we hope that you'll clarify boundaries early in the relationships. And what that means is talking about what you expect from this relationship. What do you hope will happen? And how often maybe were you thinking you might get together? It doesn't necessarily matter if one person was thinking much differently than another person. What matters is that you have this conversation so that you can be realistic and maybe come to a middle ground, or maybe express to the other person that you would like to get together more or less often than what they were thinking, and seeing if that's possible. And if not, then at least you'll be on the same page and there won't be a misunderstanding about why that there's a difference in those expectations. So be honest about those expectations. Try to find some middle ground, but in the least communicate your reasoning behind them. When you are out and about planning your outings, and those outings might be here at the hospital, maybe you're going to share lunch or grab coffee before a shift, or they might be out in the community, We know that sometimes planning events when you're a person with a disability can be challenging because of accessibility. So we hope that you'll consider doing things like calling ahead to ask questions about accessibility. When you're figuring out where to go or what to do, it might be helpful to make a list of possibilities and then choose what works best. If you run into a challenge in terms of, well, how will I do this when I'm out to eat with my connection, ask yourself or ask your partner what supports have helped that individual in the past. And that might get you started to figure out how to make it happen now as you go out with your partner in this connection. And you may need to think outside the box for fun activities. So, some individuals who have felt comfortable have even shared meals in each other's homes already. So, it's not necessarily a part of this program that you have to go out and about in the community. Although we know there are lots of fun things to do in our area, so that we hope partners will enjoy that as well too. So depending on where you go, location is going to matter. So you're going to want to try to find an accessible location that includes accessible parking, accessible restrooms, and also if you're a person that needs the bus, thinking about the bus stop. If you need other accommodations, maybe food accommodations or closed captioning if you're going to catch a movie, you'll want to talk about those as well so you can get that planned out. Transportation is a huge piece. So think about how you get from place to place and how your match gets from place to place. And recognize that their mode of transportation for work may be very different for social outings. So they may have a ride to work or they may be able to ride a bus to work, but those same options might not be available if it's just for fun. So think about that and think about how much notice is required to schedule transportation or to make changes. So just as time is necessary sometimes in advance to schedule transportation, keep in mind that if you cancel with short notice or no notice with some accessible transportation options, that can actually be a negative or ding a person use of that. It can actually put a person's use of that transportation option or mode at risk sometimes. So be cautious about canceling last minute, especially if a person is relying on public transportation options. And be honest about your comfort driving together to events. It's no different than if you would drive another coworker. So some people are comfortable with that, some people are not. Either is fine. Just talk about it first. Money. We hope that this will be a fun, informal way to connect employees. We know that there are free options. Sometimes you have to look for them, but we don't want anyone to go to events or feel pressure to go to events that's not within their budget. So that's the primary thing, is we want you to think about what is your typical budget for a social outing. If you're going to go to a restaurant, check the menu in advance and make sure both people are on the same page about the budget for that meal. And don't forget to include transportation costs if you're trying to figure out how much something will cost overall. In our training, we had an opportunity to ask lots of what if questions. These were a few that came up. We hope that if you have what if questions like this, that you'll direct them to one of us that are on the planning group. So we can answer those individually, I think, best. But a couple of the more general ones that I'll hit quickly is, what if my schedule is completely different than my partner's? We've had this come up. Let us know and we'll try to help. But also keep in mind that we all have the same thing in common, that everybody works at Children's, even if it's a different campus. So that might be a starting point in terms of sharing a quick meal or coffee before or after lunch when your shifts may overlap. Another question is, how long will this program last? We hope that we'll follow this particular set of matches for a year, but just like any friendship or connection, we don't expect that they'll immediately end at that year point. So we think that's kind of up to you. Questions, concerns, comments, we truly want to hear from you. We want to hear questions and concerns so that we can help you get through those, but we also want to hear how your matches are going. So this is my contact information, but in the email and in your Coworker Connections materials, you have several other Nick and others that we hope that you'll reach out and let us know what you're thinking. We'd also love to hear how your matches are going. We hope successfully, and thank you so much for tuning into this orientation. We hope that it was helpful.